Hello everyone, welcome back to another live stream. Let us know in the chat first of all if everything is fine, if you can hear us, see us, and then we'll welcome my co-host as well. Z, how are you?
Great. It's great to be back. We obviously had a break and we catching up after a while. But yeah,
Yeah,
great to
after a
be
while.
back. FPL hasn't been great, but it's lovely to be back and chatting what we love.
I mean, I don't want to jinx it. For me, it's been fine. Post wildcard things have been looking good. It's all green at the moment, at least relatively green. So
Yes.
yeah, looks like everything's fine. And in terms of audio and video,
Yeah. Yep.
anything particularly you want to talk about? I think you captain Mo Salah this game week. Did you?
Yes. Yes. Indeed. So I had two penalty misses this game week. Obviously, Tony is someone I own, and he missed one but scored the other one. Uh, Captain Mo Salah. I have Mo Salah and I actually captained him as well. And I looked at his, I obviously, I was watching the game and I looked at his data after the game. He had 10 shots, he had three big chances, and he racked up, I think, the most XG ever in his Liverpool career. And he still came out with just 5 points. So I think that was very harsh, but it's part and parcel at the end of the day. I felt it was a good call, but it didn't quite pay off. But yeah, we keep trying at the end of the day.
I mean, hard luck with all the numbers he had. It was an open game. He could have all like on another day, even Tony could have scored. And it would have been a huge margin for you. But as a
Definitely. And
non-Tony and Salah owner, I love to see it.
it was, and I think that's a theme, right? Variance. So it did not work in my favor this week, but we have 8 more game weeks to go, right? And game week 31 is the focus this time. So we have a lot of things in store. We'll obviously look at the attacking data of all the teams. We look at the defensive data, and we'll see which are the players that we should target for game week 31. And obviously, there's game week 32, which will be a blank game week, but that's not this game week. So we have something lined up for our viewers next week, but yeah, we're going to talk about these things in detail, the attacking and the defensive data. And there is a Manchester City player who has been quite in demand. So we'll also talk about him. Let's get started with the attacking data, Anshuman. We look at the
Or
attacking.
let's actually, I was thinking, let's just first dive into the main topic and main scene because I'm very curious and interested in that part. The data we'll also look side by side in the data. Or do you want to go with the data first?
Indeed. So yeah, the big. I mean, it's not really a surprise anymore. Like it's Jack Grealish that we're talking about, and not just us. Everyone has been talking about him. Change in fortunes for him. Until a certain point, till the World Cup, he was not really considered an FPL asset, and he was not really starting games for City. And even in the games that he was starting, he was not really on our FPL radar. But now things have changed. Suddenly, Grealish is in demand. He has done well against Liverpool. He has done well in most of the games in recent times. So that is the data that you're looking at, and this is actually one of the threads that I did on Twitter. And you're looking at Jack Grealish's data pre World Cup and post World Cup, and you can see that the contrast in numbers is actually on a different level. Jack Grealish is a completely new FPL asset if you look at him right now compared to what he was before the World Cup. He's taking a lot more shots in the box. Another big factor that has contributed to this is the departure of Cancelo. So Cancelo, when he was at City, he was a very good FPL asset, but now he's departed to Bayern Munich. But his departure has actually benefited Jack Grealish because Cancelo used to have a lot of the ball. He would come inside, take a lot of shots, and Grealish was asked to stay wide. Now that is not happening anymore. It's actually Ake who's playing that role as the left centre back or the left back at times. And even if he's in the final third, he tends to overlap. He does not hog those half spaces, those central areas that Jack Grealish likes. And clearly, the change of role has worked in his favor. What are your thoughts, Anshuman? Do you think with this change in numbers, do you think he could be a valuable punt, especially at that price?
So I don't see him as a very consistent player, to be honest. Like I've always not been a Jack Grealish fan over the period, over the years, even in Aston Villa. So where I am coming from is now it becomes an obvious move for everyone who's looking at a Rashford or Madison replacement. Rashford is still not declared as fit or even non long-term injury. We have no news as of now. Hopefully, day after tomorrow we'll have some news. That is when they have the press conference or they have Europa. I'm not very sure on that. I think they have the Europa game as well. So you get news then, and even Madison is probably having a bad game, or you have Saka. You might have other players. Barnes is probably injured out as well if you had Barnes as in your team. So everyone's looking at Jack Grealish. My only problem is one, his minutes. is a big issue going ahead. That's one problem I have. The second is that I find that he's been racking up decent numbers, but the output is still very low. So even if so, a fair comparison I saw on Twitter as well is that him and Mitoma have similar numbers post restart, but Mitoma has delivered much higher because he's an excellent finisher. He's more onto it, whereas Jack Grealish is an underperformer eventually, even if he's racking up numbers. So my concern is that will he continue his form, and it's like it's a move you have to make, but I'm not very keen on it. It's basically I don't see a lot of points flowing out for him. It depends also if City like score six, he'll obviously get something, but I don't see him at the center of points. Haaland will obviously outscore him, but the second player also, I'm not sure if Grealish will be the second man scoring the highest points.
Yeah, I think those are valid doubts, and this is something that I've been getting a lot of Jack Grealish questions, and this is what I've told people as well, that I think at his price he's a fine pick, and he's obviously doing a lot more well for Man City as a player, not particularly as an FPL asset. Obviously, he's putting up decent numbers. I looked at his data post World Cup from a fantasy point of view. I think he's averaging about 5 points per game, which I think is decent. It's not great. I think the idea behind Jack Grealish should be that if you're bringing him in, he's not that kind of a. So, for example, if you look at someone like Foden, like you can expect the odd 18 pointer or a 15 pointer here and there. Jack Grealish, I'm not very sure he could get a double digit return every now and then, but he's not a De Bruyne, he's not a Foden, right? I think you have to manage your expectations if you get him in, and the idea should be that don't get him in for 1 or 2 weeks. You get someone like Grealish, leave him in the team for 5 or 6 weeks, and I think over that period, like if you get him for 5 or 6 games, he could get you those 30, 35 points, which from a long term perspective could be like a good set and forget option from Man City. I think with regards to numbers, you and the viewers should not be worried. The reason for this is that Foden is unavailable right now. That makes Jack Grealish the only available left winger in the City side. Now, if we look at the schedule, right, they're probably playing a game, I think, every 3 or 4 days. But very soon, there is an FA Cup game against Sheffield United. And that game is sort of sandwiched between the second leg of Bayern Munich and the Arsenal game in the Premier League. So I think that is where his rest will come, because the other realistic option that Pep has is probably Cole Palmer. I think he's still. I don't think that Pep will trust him in the Premier League in terms of minutes or a start. Maybe he'll get a 20, 30 minute cameo here and there. But I think in terms of starts in the medium term, Jack Grealish should be secure. But yeah, don't keep your hopes too high. That's my uh, take on Jack Grealish.
So I have certain questions. So I'm coming from the perspective that I'm completely oblivious of Jack Grealish till now, and a lot of viewers are also interested in. So both of us have like are pretty much clear that he's not a high ceiling player. He's probably a decent floor. He'll get involved in the goals, but if City goal score 3-4 obviously. Otherwise, he'll be fairly scoring 2 to 5 points in my opinion. He's probably very less like very unlikely to score a double digit haul. That's I think we're pretty set on it. But I actually it's fair. But my only problem is that will he be rested? Because in case he plays Sheffield and there's like a complete tactical shift, even if there's no tactical shift, the double game week 34 is what is more important to me. The Arsenal game is not a priority to me. I think Leicester is fine. I think free game week 32 we don't own him. 34 becomes a problem because they play Fulham and West Ham, and I think he could be benched there. And that's where I'm thinking about whether it's a good investment or should I still just take it for the sake of people are buying it, or should I just look at other options? Maybe Mahrez, because if Foden is out, even Mahrez could play that wing, and he'll
Yeah.
probably be nailed on as well. Although he's been getting subbed off recently.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. So I think the important thing to consider here is that Man City are still in a title race with Arsenal. So obviously, in a couple of weeks' time, a lot could change. So, for example, if City play Leicester and they drop points, suddenly they are 9 points behind Arsenal, which becomes a lot. But currently, they are 6 points behind. They have a game in hand, and they're still to play Arsenal. So keeping that in mind, and this is the business end of the season. So even if players are playing a game every 3 days, it's just going to be 10, like 8 or 10 or 12 games, including the potential Man City games if they progress, in the Champions League as well. So I think at the business end of the season, and keeping in mind that Foden is unavailable, his minutes should be secure, and he should keep getting those consistent starts. And we've seen in the past, right? City have been in title races, and we've seen during this period between March to May where the attackers that Pep trusts, he keeps playing them every 3 days when the title is on the line. So I think that could happen. But like I said, I don't particularly like this is obviously there for the viewers. We're just putting the numbers out there and they can take their decisions. But I think I agree with you in the sense that uh, his ceiling is not really high. If you're getting a player from a team like Man City who are very attacking, and this team has the potential to score 5, 6, 7 goals, like you said, I would rather go. Obviously, Haaland is, he just takes a spot. You need to have him. That leaves you with two extra Man City spots. I think you should probably look at De Bruyne, because everyone talks about how De Bruyne is having an underwhelming season. And I looked at his numbers, and I think he's got like 23 attacking returns and 27 starts, which is ridiculous. Uh, Price should not be an issue because we've got a lot of cheap enablers this season. And the good part about De Bruyne is that whenever we've seen that, even if he gets just one assist, he gets at least two bonus points, because that's his kind of play. He creates a lot of chances. He does a lot of passing. His work rate is quite good. So I think De Bruyne could be that midfielder that we're looking at. And we'll obviously look at the defensive data, but we know that how good Man City are at the back. Yes, they've not been keeping a lot of clean sheets, recently. I think they've been unlucky. They've been just conceding that odd goal here and there. I am pretty confident that the clean sheets will come in the coming weeks. So I think you could probably look at Ruben Diaz if you have that 6 million sort of amount to spare. If not, you're looking at a cheaper alternative. I think Nathan Aki could be a shot. Even he's Diaz and Aki, I think, are pretty nailed. So I think an Aki or a Diaz and a De Bruyne along with Haaland, these three players are better investment in terms of the floor and ceilings when it comes to investing in Man City instead of Jack Grealish. That's where I stand.
So I pretty much disagree with the fact that De Bruyne is an option, because given the fact that he's been recently benched and he is a minutes issue, given the same price point, people will be interested in Salah more because he's on penalties. He looks like he's dangerous. So if you had to pick between Salah and De Bruyne, I think my pretty much my money is on Salah. And I don't
Yes.
think a lot of people can afford Salah, Kevin De Bruyne, and Haaland together in the team. Also going four or five defenders and also having a deeper bench, because most of us have a deep bench at the moment. So I think between De Bruyne and Salah, it's pretty much, I'm very much convinced that it's Salah to me. The bigger question, yes, a lot of people now, you can go Jack Grealish for Rashford, but then the third spot becomes a debate because a lot of people are looking at Edison, which I think isn't the best option. I think going a cheaper attacking option, maybe someone like an Ake who has some threat, goal threat, is much better. Pep has outrightly said that he is the nailed on defender in the team. There's probably Diaz alongside him as well. So you probably should look them, and they're cheaper as well than Edison. I think that's why I'm looking at the third spot. The other people who don't want to punt at Grealish and don't want him for Leicester, if let's say he plays 90 minutes in Bayern, I don't think that's a worry. Given that it is a Tuesday, Saturday turnaround, I am not very worried. I think he'll still play and he'll still manage decent minutes. My problem is game week 34. So you can do the other way around where you can just buy a City defender this game week. And in 34, then you can decide, depending on how many players are fit or who's not, and then by the third spot of the City attack or their defense. So at this point, I'm pretty much on the side of getting Grealish, because lack of options is an issue. I have Madison and Rashford both, and I can't. I need to offload one of them, and there's absolutely no option. The other options in midfield are probably an Eze or Ulis from Crystal Palace. There's Willock from Newcastle. There's probably Gakpo, maybe, who doesn't start, or Luis Diaz. I don't know if he start or not.
Yeah.
So really lack of options out there, and that is why I
Yeah.
think probably Jack Grealish just fits in there because he's slightly hitting form. And something that I've noticed, that earlier pre World Cup, he's pretty much hugging the wide line. Recently, he's not been doing that. He's pretty much inside. He's slightly more inside than usual. So that's also helping him a lot. He's taking more shots. Although again, he's an underperformer. His XG and XA. So even if he's racking up per 90 XGI of 1, I don't expect him to be involved every game. But that's
Yeah.
something you can watch out. So you probably will need a 1.5 XGI per 90 or even 2 to get an involvement out of him or a goal out of him. So something you can watch out for.
Yeah, I think he's a steady shot. Obviously, it depends on your risk appetite and what you need out of. And like I said, that he's the kind of guy you bring him in, leave him in your team for 5 or 6 weeks, and I'm very sure that in his new role, he will get you 30, 35 points, which is quite good when you work out the average of 5 or 6 points per game. And also, like you said, that he's playing a lot more inside. Actually, there's a like we discussed, there's a big contrast in terms of numbers. I think his penalty area touches after the World Cup has been around 6.2, which is pretty good, especially for his price. And like we discussed, the tactical side of it, and something that I tweeted out as well, that Nathan Ake actually lets him do his thing. And I think mentally also he sort of has this thing that he knows that he can take more risks. He can take more chances because Ake is quite a solid defender. He can cover for him. Unlike Cancelo, with all due respect to him, he's not a great defender, and we saw that in the past. That so the Grealish always had that. He used to hesitate, taking on players and getting into attacking positions, and just making his thing in the final third. That is not the case anymore. So yeah, I think he is indeed a steady shout. So that's two city spots, right? That's Haaland, and then obviously you're looking at Grealish, who could be a steady shout. When you look at the third spot, I think I agree with you that it isn't. I mean, it's a waste of a
Move
Man
in a
City
spot, I
spot.
think. Yeah, it's waste of money
Yeah,
as well, in my opinion.
yeah. You don't get the keeper. So I think that Ake or Diaz could be decent shouts. Would you be interested in those two, or do you have something else? Maybe a off, you know, out of the box shout like a John
No, no,
Stones or
Ake.
something.
I think
What do you
Ake. Hands down, Ake. He's five. He's good at headers. You know that he can take a shot if
think?
required. I think he's decent.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement there. Very cheap, very much nail. I think Pep is. I was watching a recent Guardiola conference, and Pep used the word undroppable for him, which is quite rare. So he said that he's undroppable. He does not, see a game where he's not starting Ake, which is very promising. So I think he's going to start each and every game. The price is great, and his height is. He's not that tall, but he's a beast. I think he's one of the top defenders in the league when it comes to winning aerial duels, and he could be the target because we spoke about this in one of the previous episodes that when City are taking corners or one of those long set pieces, Diaz sort of acts as the guy who attracts the other center backs, and it's the other center back that attacks the ball. So he's the one
Probably.
who is just getting defenders out of the way, and the other one benefits. So Aki could be the guy who can be at the end of some goals in the coming weeks.
Okay, yeah, I think we pretty much are on sync on that. I think the three City players, in our opinion, are those. And again, I don't expect huge hauls out of Grealish. Again, you can get a steady return, probably a similar situation to Kane at a cheaper price. So if Rashford is out for long term, then I think I would go Grealish. But my second question to you is, if Rashford is in case, now this is pretty much deviating from Grealish as well. But if Rashford is not out for a long term, would you bench him out there, or would you still sell him?
I think it really depends, right? If you have a free hit in 32, then I think it makes sense to just hold on to Rashford because then you'll probably need him for the double game week. But I think if he's out for a long, like obviously
Yeah,
it's a very
for a
easy
long,
choice.
it's an obvious out sell in my opinion as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think the worry is that I am just worried that ETH, Ten Hag in his press conference, he might be secretive and he might not tell us what is the exact situation. So that is a big worry. But we'll have to see. Let's see if we get some news on Rashford. Also, I think this is suddenly a big problem area because you mentioned the other midfielders and this sort of price range, and you look at someone like a Madison, and we thought he'll do well, but that's not really happened. And I looked at Leicester's home data the other day. They're the worst attacking side at home in the entire league, and I think that is terrible and quite worrying because you are in a league with teams like NFO and Bournemouth, and you're doing worse than them. I think that is relegation stuff. So that's a big red flag if you have Madison or even Barnes, for that matter. I think Leicester players are a firm avoid. Uh, it's not looking good for them. So
Yeah,
that's another
Bournemouth
worry.
outrightly outplayed them, and they were very decent. Even if I think Dean Smith is coming to Leicester, I don't know if I don't know what impact he'll have. But again, if you have Leicester assets, it's better off moving away from them, despite their fixtures looking lucrative. I think it's not worth on holding to either Barnes or Madison, and they both might carrying some injuries again. So I think it's an easy sell for both of them.
Yeah. So obviously we're getting some questions. So there are some people calling us. So for example, there's Gotham in the live chat, and he says that he already has Grealish. So what would be like your suggestion in a situation where you have Rashford, you already have Grealish in your team? Do you think there's another gem out there in that price range that could be the solution for such managers?
So it depends on your situation. So I was looking at punts you can take this game week, and probably this game week and 33, given that you have free hit in 32 and you'll probably bench him 34, I think. So there are not many options. The only good fixture is probably Southampton versus Crystal, but I think Southampton will keep them out. I don't think Southampton will concede a lot of goals to Crystal. They have been defensively decent. Again, even City were pretty much attacking, taking their chances. They took their chances, whatever they got, and scored. They didn't have massive number of chances against Southampton, and this has been a trend with Southampton. They're doing decent defensively. They've been unlucky at times as well. Their keeper has been very poor. That's also a reason. But overall, I don't think there's a very good punt out there. Maybe a Joe Willock if you can fancy. I think Andreas Pereira is a good 1 week punt for this game week, and you'll also get a double game week in 34 if you want to fancy and go there. But otherwise, I don't think there's an out and out replacement. So probably you can bench him and just wait for it. I think there's no out and
Yeah,
out replacement out there.
yeah. I think if you already have Grealish, it's like Anshuman said.
Yeah,
You just have
it's
to be
pretty much
patient and
set.
see. Just wait for more information and see what happens. That could
You
be
can
the way
use
to
it in
go.
the defense though. If you have a free transfer, you can probably get a City defender ahead of everyone, and which this game week looks like a clean sheet potential to me as well. And then they have a double game week. He's pretty much nailed down as well. And then you'll be one move ahead of everyone who will probably get a City defender in 34. So that is when you can use another, like you can use your transfer on Grealish probably to get an attacking, maybe a Mahrez if he's looking explosive, or maybe if you have some other news, you can make use of that move.
Yeah. That definitely agree with that. So we're obviously talking about attackers, right? We've got the attacking stats up there, and I think it's the usual suspects, right? The teams that we expect to be at the top, uh, the likes of Arsenal and Man City, very good attacking data. I think Man City are right at the top, 34.75 xg, and that's not really a surprise. And so not much to discuss in terms of Arsenal, right? Uh, Saka has been sort of he's I think he's been a bit inconsistent. So we obviously got that big 18 pointer, but apart from that, if you look at it, he's got just very small returns here and there. On the other hand, Martinelli has been on fire. Like he's been delivering game after game. Also did really well against Liverpool, and he could have had more in that game. So where do we stand on Arsenal? Is Saka still the go-to Arsenal attacker because he has penalties, or does that tag now belong to Martinelli?
So I pretty much still believe Martinelli is probably the attacker to go. It's only because the shift in role given by Arteta to him is that go central, get into the box, get central, and take more shots. So essentially, that's the difference probably even post restart, and even not even post restart, game week 25, 26, that has been the change. So I think if you have Martinelli, probably hold. If you have Saka, you hold this game week because it's the West Ham fixture, and West Ham are defensively weak. But post game week 33, even when they play City, there is a case where you can remove Kane and let's say downgrade Kane to someone and upgrade Saka to a Salah. I'm not totally against it if your team allows you to do so, obviously. But there's no, I'm not in the opinion, oh, you have to hold Saka. I think you can look otherwise. You can look other ways as well. Because that also gives you the flexibility of probably removing Saka, get Salah. When they have good fixtures post game week 35, they have 36, 37, 38, which are good for Arsenal. That is when you can probably look at Gabriel Jesus. He could be hitting form. So it allows you the flexibility. You can go probably back to Martinelli. So I think having that flexibility in your team is very good.
Yeah, actually, like it's interesting that you mentioned him. And Gabriel Jesus is a player that I actually transferred in last game week, so I already have him in my team. He did get on the score sheet against Liverpool, and uh, I think the reason why I really like him is that he'll pretty much start every single game with the title race on the line. That is, I'm very confident about that. And we saw it right in the recent weeks where Trossard was doing really well. There's no reason to actually drop him, but he's now out of the team because Jesus is back. So Arteta probably looks at him as one of his star players, and as soon as he's back and available, I think he'll continue to start. And he's always had good XG numbers. He's probably not probably he's actually not as clinical as Martinelli, but the important thing is he gets a lot of chances and he will keep putting them away every now and then. So that is quite interesting. Also, another interesting thing is that you spoke about potentially taking Saka out for a Liverpool midfielder, probably Salah, because he is their go-to guy. And if you look at the XG data of Liverpool out here, it's not as good as City is. It's not as good as Arsenal, but or even Brighton, for example. But I'm looking at the table here. The interesting thing is that only Man City have created more big chances than Liverpool. So Liverpool are actually second when it comes to
Yeah.
big chances created. And who is the guy who's most likely to be at the end of those big chances? It's actually Mo Salah. And one thing I liked about the Arsenal game was that one thing that I was not very happy about as a Salah owner earlier was that Klopp was asking him to stay wide, which I think is suboptimal because Salah is world class. He's probably the best winger in the world. You need him in those central areas because he's a proven goal scorer. And he changed that against Arsenal. Salah was playing inside. He was attacking the penalty area. So if that trend continues, I think Salah could be in for a huge haul in the coming game weeks. Uh, what do you think? Do you think Salah is heading towards that must have second, you know, 13 million
Premium,
attacker
yeah, yeah, I
apart from
think.
Haaland?
Yeah, I think he's must have, but I think he could lose penalties. I'm not confident, yeah, because two penalties, 2 out of 2, and those penalties have cost them points.
Yes,
And I
indeed.
wouldn't be surprised that at least for the next few games he's put out of penalties, and then probably he'll be allowed to take them again, I think. But again, he's still very much must have in going ahead, given the fact that double game week is easy. They play Leeds this game week, then again in 33 I think they have West Ham, then they have Nottingham Forest in 32. So they have a decent run of fixtures and decent set of fixtures going ahead for them. And I think Salah should be on your target list, and there could be two ways to get Salah. So for people who are interested, there are two options you might want to look at and plan. One is obviously Kane out, and that allows you the money easily, and you can get anyone for Kane. The other is Watkins downgrade to a Greenwood. That also will allow you to get Salah. So you probably want to plan your team in a way and decide your moves accordingly, where you think you can get most out of your team, because a 3-5-2 could be a very popular strategy going ahead in game week 34, because there are more midfielders and attackers and forwards available. Although that, in my as far as I've been watching football in the last few years, in the last few game weeks, attackers score a lot of goals.
True,
So
true.
I'm personally
And
looking at Kane out probably, or maybe even I could hold Kane, but then let's see how it goes. Probably downgrade a midfielder again for Salah, so it make it a 3-4-3 still, but with
yeah.
one less midfielder, one cheap midfielder basically.
Yeah. In fact, that's been the trend. It's interesting that you said that there'll be a lot of goals, and that's actually been the trend this season. And we've discussed this so many times that we're not seeing a lot of clean sheets this season. Just maybe one or two teams have been consistent in terms of delivering the clean sheets. And if you look at the defenders table, the big heavyweights of defense, like the likes of Trenton Robertson, who used to have a lot of clean sheets. I mean, we're not just the volume of clean sheets has actually gone down quite a bit, and there is nothing that suggests that it will change in the coming weeks. I think we'll continue to see high scoring game weeks. So even if you're getting a defender, for example, I think the idea should be that get someone who's likely to get you an attacking return. Like we discussed, Nathan Ake, who is probably can get a goal here and there. I think that should be the idea. Also on this point, and while we are discussing Salah, do you think there are other Liverpool players who sort of warrant any sort of investment? Also, there's a guy called Trent Alexander-Arnold. I have him in my team. He was playing that inverted role throughout that Arsenal game, and that's been the case in the past. But for the last 15, 20 minutes, Klopp actually gave him the freedom to go ahead and attack the byline. So his assist actually came from taking on Zinchenko and putting in that beautiful cross that led to Liverpool's second goal. So do you think we are in a position where we could be looking at Trent as an option, or maybe there's another Liverpool midfielder that you think could warrant investment?
So it depends on the funds you want to spread. So I don't think I can afford. If I keep Kane, I can't afford Trent. But if I let go of Kane, then I probably may be able to afford Trent. But I'm particularly not looking at Trent as of now. I could change my mind, probably go even Robertson as well. But my priority is not Trent. My priority is getting other players and other midfielders who I think will get more points. Because again, you want him for the attacking return, but that's all obviously, and it's not a set pattern. So unless he's in form or he's scoring continuously, I'm not looking at him because there's no baseline clean sheet for him. And that is why I'm really at the moment I'm not spending 7.3 million on him.
That makes sense. Then are you looking at an attacker from Liverpool? Maybe a Darwin Nunes
Yeah,
who's
Salah.
not getting
I think I'm
frequency.
looking at Salah itself, just
Oh,
Salah.
Salah. Okay.
I am not falling for the Nunes trap. Maybe Jota if he finds form, because he looks like the guy who's pretty much more nailed than Nunes, Diaz, and let's say Gakpo at the moment. And the problem with all these four, and even for Mino, is that anyone could play. We know that Salah is nailed pretty much; he'll start for sure. But the other places we don't know. So I think it's probably a wait and watch for me at least.
Yeah, just a word of caution because you mentioned Diogo Jota. I am not sure, but I remember reading it that Diogo Jota has not scored a goal for Liverpool for I don't know if it's all counts, but in the last 32 games, he's not scored a single goal, which was surprising. I was shocked when I saw that data because
That's in the
uh,
league, I think. In the league,
yeah, I'm not. I think it's all competitions, but it's still bad because 32 games is quite a big sample, and we've always looked at Diogo Jota as that guy who always likes to score goals. Last season he went on that run where he's at
Yeah,
times scoring a brace, scoring a hat trick at times, but it's just not happening for him. So I think you should proceed with caution if you're looking at Jota, for example. Uh, Gakpo is getting regular stars, but I don't really think he appeals as an FPL asset.
yeah,
Do you
I
think
agree.
he could be worth a shout, or like where do you stand?
No, he doesn't appeal me either as a
Yeah.
out and out option. So it's like a last option if I don't have anyone else. I look at him, but I'm not keen at buying at him. I think I would buy a Crystal Palace midfielder over Gakpo at this point.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. So I think we've discussed like the major teams in terms of which players should FPL managers be targeting for their attack. Uh, Another thing that stands out to me is Newcastle as a team who have scored 19 goals, and the XG is decent. I mean, it's not out of the world. They've got an XG of like 26.10, and there's their big chances created is also quite decent. But there's a rotation factor, right? If
Yeah,
for people who have
Wilson and
Isak,
Isaac.
Wilson is back. Do you think that Isak is a sell right now? Should we hold him? Do you expect both of them to start? What do you think could happen when it comes to Newcastle strikers right now?
I think if you have no other fires to put out in your team, probably look at other places, invest in other forwards, or downgrade and go for a 3-5-2. Because the problem is that both of them are fit, and the trend we can see from Eddie Howe is basically one game a forward starts, the other one starts. So in the long run, it's not feasible because let's say you have Isaac and Newcastle score 4, but Isaac was on the bench. It's it doesn't make sense. It's just too harsh on the team and the FL manager. I think let go of both of them. Probably if you're looking for a Newcastle mid attacker, I think Willock looks good to me. He's been taking decent shots. He's been taking 11 in the last 6 games. He's taken about 14 shots, 10 in the box. He's decent XGI as well. He's racking up those numbers, 22 penalty area touches. So he's averaging decent numbers. And he if he hits form, you know that he hits form for a longer duration of time, and he could be that guy.
Yeah, and he could be an enabler, right, for some of those people who still
Yeah,
have their
pure
bench.
punt enabler. Yeah, pure punt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, he could be worth a shout. So I think that's about it when it comes to the attackers. We'll also have a look at the defensive stats, and I mean, I think my general notion is that there's not much to, but again, it's again the usual suspects that sort of stand out when it comes to the XG conceded table. The likes of Man City and Arsenal. Uh, Again, like, do you think there is a particular defender? Like, is there a hidden gem that could be worth a shout for FPL managers among defenders?
I don't. I'm not sure. I think only Ake appeals me because City are defensively good. Leicester are known to have defense head like concede a lot of headed attempts. They are known to be weak on set pieces. I think Ake is the only one that appeals me. And also to point out for people who are watching this, Leicester are the second worst defense at this point in the last about 14 games, 13, 14 odd games, and Haaland is probably a captaincy shout. Even though Kane plays Bournemouth, I think the problem with Tottenham has been that they've been not decent attacking wise recently. Like even against Everton, Southampton, all these teams have been very poor. That really puts like a bit of caution in my captaincy thing because if the team is not putting up chances eventually, Kane out of his brilliance can obviously score an assist, but not on a larger scale, wherein Haaland will get more chances.
True that. And I think one thing that have obviously we are sort of diverting because we're discussing defensive stats, but going back to Kane because you mentioned him, one thing I don't like about him is that yes, he's quite steady, but he's not really come up with those big hauls recently. And I think when we're now approaching that, the business end of the season, and we have another premium in Salah who's getting those chances. He's playing centrally now. I think it's fine if you let him go, and he also does not have a double game week coming up, so that is also a crucial factor. Yes, he could do well. He's a quality player. He can score the odd goal in a single game, but the ceiling is not that great because if another striker, right, you have him, he's got 2 games. Even if he blanks both the games, he's getting 4 points. Kane, if even if he scores goals, I mean, Tottenham are very inconsistent. He'll get what, a 6 or 7. I think it's worth it for those extra 4 points. It's sort of worth the risk. So, and like you said, the Tottenham are a bit inconsistent, as a unit. So, yeah, I think there are a lot of red flags. And Kane obviously is not a red flag, but if you look at Tottenham as a unit, how it's impacting him, I think it's not that great when it comes to his FPL potential. Uh, yeah, I
Nothing
mean,
out of this table. Nothing else really stands out. I think Leeds look very bad. They look really shambolic at the back. They have. It looks like they've kind of given up. Everton look like the same. United have. You should have scored at least 5 or 6 goals in the first half itself. So probably keep an eye on Everton, Leeds. Those two teams look like the beach teams at this point, and you can probably target them.
yeah,
Bournemouth not so much. Even Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest have been conceding chances, but Bournemouth have suddenly been like decent in the last 6 games. There has been an upward trajectory of defensive data. So not the it's again they still Bournemouth. So any good side will really thrash them again. But even is the mid-table teams might not do extremely well against Bournemouth. Is what I'm saying.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's obviously like we keep coming back to City and their defense. I think their defense is elite, and that is why I think Ake could be such a good shot. We've already mentioned him a couple of times, and they've conceded 13 goals, but they're still underperforming their XG. They should have conceded less. If you look at the XG conceded numbers of City over here, their XGC is 11.44, and they don't concede a lot of big chances. I think Edison has been a bit erratic this season, but I hopefully he improves his performance because that will help us. And even if he does not really improve his level a lot, I think that it will sort of even out. The odd goal that they've conceded here and there, we could see some clean sheets. I think in the next 4 or 5 game weeks, I expect at least three. In the next 5, at least I expect 3 clean sheets, which I think is quite a good number. And if someone like Aki gets the extra attacking return, I think you could be looking at a very, very good score from a City defender in the coming game weeks. So yeah, I think City are the only standout
Yeah,
in
I
terms of.
think you and I don't have the exact data, and I wish I did this before earlier on the stream, but I will post it on our Twitter on our Twitter handles and the socials from FPL variance handles that
Yeah,
Leicester are indeed a very bad defense headed set piece team. So Ake has a genuine chance to haul. I'm
yeah,
not although Ake has not been taking a lot of shots, but there's a possibility. It's like playing your cards well, and maybe if it could work out for you. Although City
yeah.
have been conceding very bad goals recently, like really, really, uh, like unnecessary goals and losing clean sheets. But I think hopefully they improve now, given the fact that it could go down to goal difference, and if it goes down, City doesn't want to lose that goal difference by conceding goals.
Absolutely. And not just the Leicester game. I think even in the upcoming double game week, it's always like variance is a funny thing, right? I remember the very recent Liverpool double game week, and a lot of people racked up on Trent, for example. And I was someone who had Trent and Robertson. But guess who scored in that double game week? It was actually Virgil van Dijk. He scored a goal, kept a clean sheet in the other one, walked
Yeah.
away with 21 points. So that is the thing, and it's a similar idea, right? Van Dijk is Liverpool's target from set pieces. I think he's his equivalent here in terms of the target is. A lot of people think that Haaland is very tall and he will be like, yes, he can score from headers every now and then, but he's obviously an excellent finisher. But in terms of aerial duels, I think he's all right. He's not that great. But Ake, I would like to point it out to our viewers that he's actually an excellent defender when it comes to aerial duels. He can take on a 6.5 feet defender as well, and he can still, because his technique when he's taking the leap, he's actually quite good. It's one of his strong points. So I will not be surprised, and Anshuman has said it as well. We will not be surprised if he gets a goal against Leicester or in the upcoming double game week. I think a big
Or
haul.
against Fulham, because West Ham are
Yep.
decently set piece wise. West Ham are good. Fulham look
Yep.
set piece wise weak. So I think
Yep.
Fulham and Leicester is where my money is. Just a caution to everyone who's watching this, and we'll go ahead.
Yep.
You might want to, if you are someone who wants to attack the City fixtures, given the fact that they might score 3 or 4 or average 5 goals in every game, don't go for Ake. Wait for it till gaming 34, because then you'll know which attacker is available, and then you can take the third City spot as an attacker. If that's your team strategy, you can look at that and then not commit right now and wait till 34. You can obviously still commit to Ake in 34 as well. So if you want to play a bit like cautiously, a bit, you can do a wait and watch game. I think that could be a strategy as well. Unfortunately
Yeah.
for me, I will have to commit because I don't have enough players this game week. But if you're not in that spot, then I think you can wait till 34 and then decide even better which your third split is. I think the second should probably still go to Grealish, given the fact that he's more consistent than any other player at this point in the team.
Yeah, I think there's a beauty with City assets for a change. Apart from Haaland, none of them are very highly owned. So you get,
Yeah,
obviously you got Haaland, you get Grealish or an Ake, whatever your choice is, you get those two City players. Then in the third one, there is room to sort of tinker. And I've not mentioned him even once, but I've sort of said this to a few people that even if he starts one game in that double game week and he gets some minutes off the bench, I'm talking about Ilkay Gundogan. He is playing that Lampard sort of a role where he makes those late runs inside the box where the defenders have surrounded Haaland, and he's sort of benefiting from that space. So he's not gone used so far, but I think in the coming game weeks
but
he
I
could
mean,
be a double digit pointer for
I'll probably
Gundogan.
cut you there because I've been there, I've done that, and I've been hurt already. My hands have been burned there. So I would caution everyone that not fall into this trap because this guy Haaland just is a big robot. It doesn't matter how many defenders
Oh
are
yeah, of
surrounding him.
course you have to
He
have
just
Haaland,
manages
and
to score because
yes,
so it really doesn't
indeed.
matter how many defenders are around him. He will still hog the chance and score the goal. And I've done the Gundogan thing, and I really believed in the theory earlier in the season, but it's not worked for me at least. At least even in this team, it's not worked. I have not seen it work a lot. So probably caution there as well.
Yeah. Uh, so earlier, right, the way City were lining was a bit different. I think this has come because of the change in shape. Uh, De Bruyne and Gundogan, right? They're playing as two number eights, and in the City team, it's. I mean, there are no number eights. Even the number eights are so high up, right? They're virtually two number tens. So yes, I understand, but I think it could be a worthy punt if there are signs that he could. Feature because he's making those runs, he's making those late runs, and if City had to score like 4 or 5 goals, obviously you expect Haaland to be the chief, sort of goal scorer. He'll at least get 2 out of 5. But Gundo could be that guy who could, and he has a knack of turning up in these moments. We remember that Aston Villa game week 38 last season. That phase 2 seasons back where City did not have a striker, and he went on this mad run where he just kept making those runs inside the box, scoring goals. But like Anshuman says, word of caution, it's not worked out for him. He is that kind of a player, but yeah, if you're
And I
looking at a
take
punt,
punts. And
it's
let
just a
me be
second.
very clear. I take a lot of punts. I was very, very close. I had this discussion with a friend as well that I wanted Zaha because I've seen Crystal Palace attack very well. Then I was interested in Olis as well. Olis or as any of them. But again, I
Yeah.
didn't go for it. But and I'm very interested in taking Andreas Pereira as a punt this game week as well. I have seen Fulham attack. He's on penalties. They look decent. Everton look very bad. So this
Yeah.
game week, if you're looking for a 1 game week punt or even a long term bench boost, if you're planning 34, either ways, I think Andreas Pereira could be your guy. I would place my money on him to score or at least get us 8 or 10, maybe a 10 pointer. But yeah, I think it is possible this game week.
Yeah, I think Zaha, like obviously, like you said, that you're very paranoid about him, and rightly so. One thing is that he's on penalties for Palace, but he is a terrible penalty taker,
Yeah, I
and
mean, no
I think
point.
I'm just having that kind of season. I've actually owned Zaha, and he's missed a couple of penalties for me. Salah has missed two, and I was looking at someone posted a link about the season analysis, and I had a look, and I was shocked. I've had 12 players missing penalties for me this season, and that is absolutely
That's
heartbreaking.
probably the highest ever, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
12
am.
players
It was
missing penalty
actually
is probably
10
highest number.
before last game week. It was 10, and I was like, okay, I think this is probably it, right? I mean, the bad luck run is over. But then two players ended up missing penalties for me in the previous game week, so it's now up to 12, which is bad. I hope the run
So
stops.
basically,
But
that
yeah,
whichever penalty takers he has is expected to miss, and you can bet against it as well.
yeah, I think only Haaland is sort of safe from that curse. I've had Haaland, but
Mhm.
he's not missed a
Because he's
single
not
penalty.
human; he's
Hopefully
robot
that
after all.
continues. Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully that guy. He's a robot, right? He's a machine. The,
Yeah.
the curse does not really affect him, so he's safe. Yes.
Yeah, just closing points as well. Just wanted to add, since we're talking about defensive data, I don't think Chelsea will concede a lot of goals to Brighton this game week. We were very unlucky to concede against Wolves. I think Lampard is a defense first manager again. He will tighten the defense first. Depends on how we do against Real Madrid, what the game state is, how the injuries look like. But again, if we have a fully fit squad, preferred 11, I don't see it more than one goal conceded by Chelsea. So for people who are looking to play that double Brighton attack or maybe bench that Chelsea defenders, you might want to reconsider.
Yep,
And
I
I
think
think
that.
playing a double defense, a double Brentford defense, this game week could really be a double clean sheet for you guys.
Yeah. Do you think, obviously, you spoke about Chelsea and their sort of underlying data was decent in the previous game. Do you think that we could be in a situation where Lampard could sort of tinker a lot because he does not know what his best 11 is, and that might lead to sort of inconsistent returns in terms of clean sheets as well as attacking returns?
So
What do you
as
think?
far as I know, that he'll play the preferred defensive 11, which is he probably start Kepa, James and
Okay.
Chilwell will start as the preferred people. If Kante is fit, he'll start. Enzo will start. Kovacic will start if he's fit. And on the right wing, we will always play Kai Havertz because he doesn't have the understanding that Kai Havertz is not a winger, and he'll still continue playing Kai Havertz there. Left wing will be by Sterling. Striker could be anyone, and in the centre back, if we have Thiago Silva fit, he'll start. Then Koulibaly will start. Badishile might not start. Fofana could start. So it's still a very solid defensive team, but attacking wise, we're shit. So don't
So,
expect goals from us, but we can keep clean sheets.
so you spoke about Chilwell. Do you think he still keeps his place? Because if I'm not wrong, he
I think
actually
it was just
benched
a rest.
Chilwell.
It was just a
In,
rest
in
for
the,
Real Madrid, I think. Yeah. If he starts
okay,
tomorrow, I'm pretty much sure that he'll start the next
okay.
one as well.
That is interesting. So yeah, I think that's pretty much about it in terms of defensive data. Let's
Yeah.
move on to the final segment. We will discuss potential captaincy options for the week.
And I think that segment isn't long. I think we are pretty much set on Haaland. I think there's
Yeah,
not much to discuss. But if you want to digress, certain options are in terms of Kane against Bournemouth. I think even Son underlying recently, Son has been playing much better. He's been playing more central. He's coming inside the box late, but he's there. He's taking more shots. So if you want to take an outside punt, he has a good record against Bournemouth as well. So Son could be an outside, completely outside punt. I wouldn't recommend Grealish despite it being against Leicester. I don't think it's great as a shout. Uh, it's up to you, but I wouldn't recommend it. And there is a chance of Martinelli being a decent captaincy option against West Ham. But again, it's a derby. It's still a London derby, and I wouldn't put my money on a derby when you have Haaland or Kane as options out there.
yeah. I think there's nothing to add because you've covered it
Yeah,
all,
because
and
it's there's
the
nothing to add
it's
given the
very
fact that
straightforward. Yes,
City play Leicester. I think that's there.
and it's a home fixture. So I mean, betting
Yeah,
against City at home, Haaland, we
and I
know
don't
he's
rate
very
Dean
tough.
Smith as a
Yeah,
great manager that is going to be huge manager bounce. Also, given
yeah,
the squad they have, squad Leicester have, it could be a very defensive approach. Again, though we don't know the game state could be Dean Smith be like, okay, 10 men in the box, we defend, we don't go attack, we just don't concede goals. That could be the approach, and that could affect your captaincy decision or maybe a captaincy outcome. But in all of my senses, I don't think I'm going to go against Haaland this game week.
yes. It's too big a risk, and it
Yeah.
just makes so much sense on paper. Best attack at home against one of the worst sides, probably the best striker in the world. Unbelievable underlying data, and like we said, he's a machine. We have that assurance that he'll get something out of the game, if not a big haul. And he is chasing that Premier League record for the most goals. I think he's already hit 30 Premier League goals, and he's after that record. So I think he'll look at scoring maybe at least 8 or 10 goals, and he could do that. So yes, Haaland captain, it's a no-brainer. I think it's a non-conversation.
Yeah, and that's about it. I think we've covered most of it. But yeah, is there
Uh,
anything last minute things you want to add?
no, I think that's it. The only questions that we had in the live chat were obviously about Marcus Rashford's availability, and like we said, we don't really know yet what is the situation. If and when it is available, I think both of us will put it out, and Anshuman will put it out on his. He does it. He puts out regular Instagram stories as and when there is an update. So keep an eye out on that on Anshuman's page, and yeah, I think we will be back soon. That's it for now. Do you want to add
Just
anything?
before we
No.
wrap it up, there was one team question in the chat by Gotham.
Yes.
CS Trossard, he's saying that should I transfer Trossard to a Mitoma this week or wait for game week 33 given that I'm free hitting in 32 to utilize the transfer or transfer out White to a defender. The Trossard transfer is basically to get Jesus later on. He also has Chilwell. So in my opinion, what I think is White to a City defender is probably the easiest move we can think of, or Trossard to a Grealish. But I think he mentioned he had Grealish, so in
Yeah.
my opinion, White to a City defender sets you up very well.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and
Yeah.
given that he's probably it's a very straightforward move, so it's the right thing. White has done well in recent weeks, but it's not really the right parameter to look at it. I think all point signs sort of point towards Aki being the better option moving forward. And City, I think Arsenal are still doing fine defensively, but it's their defensive numbers recently have not been elite. They've been good, but it's they're not as good as City. So I think it's time to say thank you to Ben White for all his points. Say goodbye to him and say hi to Nathan Aki.
I think that's been the theme of the stream. And on that note, we'll wrap it up, guys. We might be do a Saturday morning sort of a breakfast stream for everyone. For if there is ample news or if there is something that drastically changes out there. Also, City play Bayern in the UCL tonight, so watch out for injuries. Watch out for how the formation looks like. Where does Grealish play and everything? That could be really important and useful. And also, Rashford's update will be provided on Thursday. So wait for news till at least Thursday. And yeah,
Definitely.
that's about it.
Yep. Lovely,
Okay.
lovely chatting to you, Anshuman. Lovely to be back and answering all the questions, discussing FPL. It was a great chat. We'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining. This is FPL Tips alongside Z signing off. Cheers.
Are we still on the stream? I think I am on the stream here, Anshuman.